it's me, James, and in this video, I'm continuing my ongoing conversation about Kipper cards by category, and this time, we're talking about the movement cards. So, stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this video. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. As I said in the opening, this is part 3 of a 5-part video series where I'm highlighting the different categories within the Kipper card deck system as a whole. This video series actually was a request from a viewer named Eloy, so hello Eloy if you're watching. Eloy sent me a DM through Instagram asking me if I would make some videos highlighting this very specific topic about Kipper. And so I was all on board because I was thinking in my mind that it was going to be a wonderful opportunity to not only honor the request, but to showcase a personal Kipper deck that I made for myself. So the deck that I've been working with in this series is the Kipper of Himm. So I talked about in the first video how this came into being, so I won't elaborate on any further. But what I will do is I will leave links to both videos 1 and 2 in the description box below. So if you're just joining me for this series, what I did was in video 1, I talked about the people cards, and in my deck, the people cards have a purple border because what I did was I color-coded the borders based on category, yeah? So I did that with the people cards, and in the second video, I talked about the connector cards, and for me, what I did was I took the borders and made them pink, right? So in this video, we're going to be talking about movement cards, and the color for the borders are green. I live in the United States, and I was thinking that green means go when it comes to like being on the road and traffic lights, yes? So that was my reasoning for the color. Now, the movement cards are very important to pay attention to directional cues. I talked about this briefly with the people cards in video 1 with regards to line of sight and directional cues, yes? So this is an important factor or feature of Kipper, and it is especially so with the movement cards. So we're going to just jump right in. There are 4, much like in the last video with the connector cards, there are 4. So we should move through these pretty quickly. So the first card is number 9 in the Kipper card deck system, and it is called Change. And change, its chief meaning is a change in circumstances. But now with the card, because it's a movement card, you want to pay attention to direction. In my depiction, there is a car, so you want to pay attention to what is behind the car and what is in front of the car, because the car is actually moving from whatever is over here in this card to whatever is over here on this side with the card that is facing it, right? So it's actually moving from one card to another, if you will, right? So you want to pay attention to the movement, but change highlights a change in circumstances. Now, for me, another meaning of it is that it can represent a move. I get it from movement, right? So it can just mean moving from one situation or circumstance, the card on the one side here, to the situation or circumstance on this side. But it can also represent like moving house, right? Things like that. But it can also, because there's a car in the image, it could just represent travel, right? And it would be maybe shorter distance travel because I'm going somewhere with this, right? So those are aspects of change, but you want to pay attention to the directional cues offered by the car in the deck. So now I'm saying that, so now I'm talking about my deck, but in your deck, the deck that you're working with, you want to pay attention to the movement of the vehicle, right? That's important with the change card. But its chief meaning just represents a change in circumstances. Okay, so that is number 9, change. Then we have card number 10, which is journey. Now I'm going somewhere with this. Now I talked about the idea about maybe short distance commutes because of the car in the image on change. Well, now here in number 10, I have a picture of a ship, right? So for me, that represents longer distance travel. And this is an homage, actually, the ship image is actually an homage to the very first Kipper deck I ever got and I worked with, which is the Mystical Kipper. And in that one, they have a person who's standing on the dock waiting for the ship to arrive and for his journey, right? So I went with a similar image. I went with the idea that a cruise ship represents longer distance travel, right? So we're traveling overseas, right? Or there's a longer distance commute to whatever the journey is. But now, with the idea of direction, in the image here, you can clearly see which way the ship is going. So you want to pay attention to cards that are on, in my card specifically, I want to pay attention to cards that are on this angle here, up here, and then down here, because it's moving from whatever card is here. If you're doing either a box or a tableau, then you would want to pay attention to the card that's here, and then the card that is up here, because it's moving from here to here, right? You could also maybe even take into account maybe a card that's above it as well. So it would be card here, here, right? Here, here, and here, right? So there's that. But now if you're doing just maybe a line, you could just then say that the ship is moving away from whatever card is here towards the card that is here. But that is the movement around the journey card. So that is card 10. Next up, we have card 17 in the deck, and that is gift. So with this one, the chief meaning of it is a gift, right? It's actually called, in traditional Kipper cartomancy, receiving a gift, right? So it implies the idea either gift giving or receiving a gift, yes? But with direction, this one is different. You want to pay attention to the card that's above it and the card that's below it, because its movement is this way, right? If the idea here is that the person at the top of the card is giving the gift to the person whose hands here are receiving the gift, then that's below. So this would be the giving and the receiving. So the movement with this card is a vertical line. So if you're doing a box and this card just happens to be in the middle of 3 cards, it's the middle of a column, then you want to pay attention to the card at the top and the card at the bottom. But now coming back to the meanings of the card. So like I said, this can represent gift, giving, or receiving. For me, it could represent holidays or any event or celebration in which gifts are exchanged or received. Like, so something like a birthday party, Christmas time, anniversaries, baby showers, any event in which a gift is exchanged, right? So there's that. Another one for me is, and this is more of a spiritual implication, and context is everything when you're working with cards, right? So this card can represent one's gifts, like your gifts, your talents, abilities, yes? So I also think of things that are being offered or something that's being presented, like a presentation with this card as well. But if I go back to the premise of the video, which is about movement, you want to pay attention to cards above and cards below of the gift card. So that is card 17. And then the last card rounding out this video is card 35. And here we have a long road, sometimes called a long way or a long journey. In some decks, it's also called pathway. I'm thinking of the Fin de Siècle Kipper by Ciro Marchetti. Right, and so with this one, for me, because the road just stretches out, I pay attention to the card that would be above it, and then the card that would be below it, because the open road, the card opens up down here at the bottom. So when I'm working with the card, if there are multiple cards around it, that's, mind you, depending on the spread, then I would look at the card above and the card below, much like the gift card. But in your deck, you want to pay attention to if there's any change in direction, like one of the Kipper decks that I have, like the road veers off to the one side, so you want to pay attention to maybe a card that would be on that one side of the road, and then at the bottom or at the top, depending on which way the roads go in your particular card. Now, the chief meaning of this card represents, you know, something that's down the road, something that's a long way off, or something that is a long time coming, depending on direction, which way you're looking, right? Or your perspective. But it's also known as a patience card because it requires waiting. And so this card can sometimes represent, in terms of timing, it's known as either 1 year or 2 years patience, right? So it's just suggesting like something's going to be taking a long time to develop or unfold, yeah? And there you have it. Those are the 4 movement cards in the Kipper card system. Thank you so much for joining me, and as I always say at the end of these videos, Eloy, if you were watching, I hope you found this video helpful in your Kipper cartomancy practice. Okay, so we have 2 more to go. In the next one, I'm going to be working with the cards known as cause and effect. So until then, this is Jameson Mitchell signing off. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I look forward to spending this time with you again in this space in our next video together. So until then, be well and take care.